You walk out of the restaurant and the air feels different than it did 2 hours ago. The conversation flowed. She laughed at the right moments. She leaned in when you talked about your dog, your job, that trip you took last year. You hugged goodbye a little longer than a normal goodbye lasts. You got in your car and thought, that went really well. You text her that night. Nothing back. You tell yourself she's busy. You check your phone every 20 minutes without meaning to. The next morning, still nothing. By the second day, you're rereading the whole date in your head, replaying every sentence, wondering which one broke it. Why does this keep happening? Did I say something wrong? Was it actually good, or did I imagine that? Am I just bad at this? Wait. Here's the part almost nobody says out loud. She didn't lose interest because you did something wrong on the date. She lost interest because of what happened in the 72 hours after it, in the tiny invisible moments you weren't even in the room for. You're not bad at first dates. You're not unlovable, and you're not imagining the chemistry that was actually there. Every person who has ever dated has stood exactly where you're standing right now, replaying a good night that somehow went nowhere. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which of these 7 things is quietly killing your momentum after a great first date. And the wild part is, most of them have nothing to do with how the date actually went. Let's get into it. Most guys believe that a great first date is the finish line. That if the laughing was real and the connection felt easy, the hard part is over and the rest just follows naturally. But the real truth is, a first date isn't the finish line. It's the opening scene of an audition. And she's not auditioning you for a relationship, yet she's auditioning you for whether it's safe to be curious about you at all. Her nervous system is reading you before her mind has even finished processing the conversation. It's scanning for patterns. Does he text like someone who's calm or someone who's anxious? Does he create space or does he collapse it? Attraction on a first date is just the spark. What happens after is what tells her whether the spark is worth protecting or worth letting burn out on its own. This is why trying harder right after a good date so often backfires, because effort without emotional pacing doesn't read as confidence, it reads as pressure. And pressure, even wrapped in enthusiasm, is one of the fastest ways interest quietly leaves the room. Once you see this pattern, you'll start noticing it everywhere in your own dating life. Here's where it shows up first. Here's the part no one talks about, the double text spiral. Most guys who feel a real connection do the same thing. After a good date, they send one text, get a slower reply than expected, and panic send a second one to keep the conversation going. But here's what nobody explains. A slower reply almost never means she's losing interest. It usually means she's living her actual life. The second text is what kills it, because now her nervous system isn't reading enthusiasm, it's reading need. Picture this. He sends, "Had a great time last night," gets a reply 4 hours later that just says, "Me too. This weekend got busy, lol," and immediately sends back 3 more messages trying to re-spark the excitement from the date. Now picture the version that works. He sends the same first text, sees the slower reply, and does nothing except go live his own day, phone face down on the counter. Something in her is quietly registering, he's not glued to his phone waiting on me. That's rare. And when you give her that kind of room, you stop feeling like a text notification and start feeling like a person she's actually curious about. That's reason 1. Reason 2 is even more invisible, and it happens before you've even sent a single message. Here's the one most people never figure out, the over-explained plan. Most guys, when they want to see her again, try to prove how thoughtful they are by mapping out an elaborate next date down to the last detail, the exact restaurant, the backup restaurant, the time, the parking plan, all before she's even said yes to hanging out again. But the deeper truth is that over-planning before there's mutual momentum doesn't feel romantic to her. It feels like a script she never agreed to be in. Certainty that arrives before comfort reads as control, not confidence. Picture the version that backfires a paragraph message, laying out an entire Saturday itinerary 2 days after one date. Now picture the version that lands, "This week's been fun to think about. Want to grab coffee sometime and see where it goes." Short, low pressure, an open hand instead of a closed fist. Her brain quietly registers. He's not trying to lock this down, he's just enjoying it. And that's exactly the kind of ease that makes someone want to keep showing up. Not more effort, not more detail, not a longer message proving how serious you are. Just enough certainty to feel safe and enough space to feel free. That's the shift that keeps her curious instead of cornered. And once that door stays open, here's where things get even more interesting. This is where it gets really interesting. the vanishing personality. Most guys who are actually charming and funny on a first date become strangely careful and polished the moment texting starts, because now the stakes feel higher and they don't want to mess it up. But here's what changes everything. She wasn't attracted to a polished version of you. She was attracted to the real one, the guy who made an actual joke, who reacted honestly, who felt like a person and not a performance. The moment your texts turn into polite, safe, interchangeable lines, the spark she felt in person has nothing left to attach to. On the date, he made a joke about her terrible parallel parking, and she laughed until she snorted. In the texts after, he sends, "Hope you're having a good day," 3 days in a row. Nothing wrong with kindness, but nothing recognizable in it either. The version that keeps the spark alive is the one that brings back a piece of the actual conversation. Still thinking about how confidently wrong you were about pineapple on pizza, something only the two of you would understand. Her brain does the math instantly. This is the same guy from the date, not a customer service version of him. And when the person in the texts matches the person at the table, she stops wondering if the chemistry was real, because she's still feeling it. Reason 4 is the quiet one. It rarely gets noticed until it's already done the damage. Here's a part no one talks about: the compliment overload. Most guys, wanting to make sure she knows they're interested, load the follow-up messages with compliment after compliment. "You're so beautiful, you're so smart, I can't stop thinking about you, you're different from anyone I've met." But the real truth is, desire that arrives before depth doesn't feel flattering for long. It starts to feel unearned, like she's being told who she is by someone who's only spent 2 hours with her. Not louder compliments, not more intensity, not proving the attraction through volume. What actually lands is specific, small, and earned, noticing the way she talked about her sister with real pride, or that she orders the same drink every time out of loyalty, not habit. She feels seen instead of flattered, and there's a difference. Being flattered is nice for a moment. Being seen is what makes someone want to keep showing up. That's reason 4. Reason 5 is where most guys accidentally start a war they don't even know they're fighting. Here's the part almost nobody catches in the moment: the urgency leak. Most guys start subtly rushing the pace after a good date, asking when she's free next before the first text thread even finishes, checking in daily, needing the next date locked in fast, because the good feeling from the first one is fading, and they want to recreate it immediately. But here's what nobody explains. Urgency doesn't come across as excitement to her. It comes across as anxiety, and anxiety is contagious. When one person's nervous system is scanning for reassurance, the other person's nervous system starts quietly pulling back to protect its own space. Picture 2 versions of the same Tuesday. In one, he texts, "Any chance you're free this week? Tomorrow? Thursday? I'm pretty flexible, whatever works within a day of the date." In the other, he lets a few days breathe, then sends one relaxed line, "If you're up for round 2 at some point, I'm in." Same intention. Completely different nervous system underneath it. Something in her settles when she reads the second version. He wants this, but he's not gripping it. That's the exact feeling that makes someone lean back in instead of stepping back. This isn't a trick to seem less interested than you are. It's just what it looks like when someone actually trusts that a good connection doesn't need to be chased to be real. That settles reason 5. Reason 6 is the one almost every guide online gets completely backwards. This is where it gets really interesting. The disappearing curiosity. Most guys spend the first date asking great questions, and then, once texting starts, quietly stop asking anything at all, talking about their own week, their own plans, their own excitement, without realizing the questions were half of what made the date feel so good in the first place. But the deeper truth is that attraction isn't just built by being interesting. It's built by being interested, consistently, in a way that makes someone feel like there's still more of them left to discover. On the date, he asked what she was like as a kid, and actually listened to the answer. 3 days later in texts, it's all updates ab.